Do you believe that we possess greater intelligence compared to the people of ancient civilizations? Picture people sitting on the shores of Mediterranean or Aegean Sea, contemplating the nature of matter approximately 25 centuries ago. Atoms, as we learn in school, are a topic of scientific discovery, with evidences for their existence uncovered about a century ago. Considering the modernity of the subject, one might wonder why knowledge of atoms was lost for many centuries, and how ancient people managed to contemplate this concept before us. The story originates in ancient Greece, where brilliant thinkers sought to address questions similar to those we have today, despite living in a vastly different era. The individuals I'd like to discuss are the pre-Socratic philosophers, who lived approximately 500 years before Socrates, Plato, and Aristotle. Unlike them, their philosophical focus was not on politics or morals, but primarily on the natural science. It's important to remember that during that time, people heavily relied on mythology to explain natural phenomena. For example, if someone were asked how something occurred, they might attribute it to the metaphysical forces or the influence of supernatural powers. In this context, it is quite remarkable that those philosophers began to propose that everything had a natural explanation, like raining. One fascinating aspect of the pre-Socratic philosopher is that they were pioneers in mathematics, with some of the most important theorems named after them, such as Pythagorean theorem, Thales theorem, and Euclidean geometry. However, my focus here is on their thoughts regarding the nature of matter. Before delving into details, let's examine an interesting question about numbers. We know that numbers arise from counting, like 1, 2, 3, 4, and later we develop fractional number. Eventually, people discovered irrational numbers, such as the square root of 2, which led to the question about whether numbers are discrete or continuous. This raised further questions about the nature of the world, such as whether measurements like length or time are discrete or continuous, or if the universe is made of distinct particle or continuous matter. Another consideration was whether all materials shared a common property despite their apparent differences. Now that we understand those questions, let's explore the answers to them. The first philosopher I'd like to discuss is Thales, an incredibly intelligent man who could be considered one of the earliest proponents of scientific worldview. He was the first to propose that water is the primary element common to all materials, likely based on the observation that water is essential for sustaining life. While now we know that water is not the fundamental element, Thales' attempt to identify a shared element among all materials is noteworthy. Additionally, he developed a cosmological model in which the Earth, shaped like a cylinder, was suspended into an immense reservoir of water, seemingly floating within it. Anaximander, a student of Thales, is in my opinion one of the most underrated figures in the history. He made numerous contributions to natural philosophy, which I cannot fully cover in this limited time. Similar to his teacher, Anaximander believed that there was a common element present in all materials. However, he thought that this element was air, not water. The realization that air is a substance was significant. Additionally, Anaximander proposed a cosmological model, similar to his teacher, but in his version, the earth was suspended in the air rather than water. Later, a philosopher named Empedocles synthesized ideas similar to those of Thales and Anaximander, proposing that there were four elements in nature: water, air, fire, and earth. This concept was eventually promoted by Aristotle, and since he was highly regarded by those who followed, his idea was widely accepted for centuries, until scientific evidence for atoms emerged. The notion of four elements made sense to many, as they believed that the same pattern observed in the four seasons of nature, it should also be present in materials. Some thinkers also proposed a fifth element, which they called ether. It was believed by some that the moon was composed of this fifth element, which explained its shine. Democritus, or central figure, is considered the founder of atomic theory, which proposes that everything is made of tiny, indivisible particles called atoms. It is widely believed that he developed these ideas based on the original concept of Leucippus, his teacher. Democritus found that other theories did not adequately explain the changes he observed in the world. For instance, if everything contained a little bit of everything else, why didn't all things mix together? He likely observed how water could seep into and break stones, and questioned how this could happen and how far a stone could be broken into infinitesimal pieces. His solution was the concept of atoms and void. According to Democritus, there were only atoms and void, with atoms not mixing with one another, and void providing a space for atoms to move. He was among those who argued that some degree of void or emptiness indeed existed. While Anaximander believed that air was not nothingness, Democritus contended that having nothing was acceptable as atoms move within the void. In Democritus' view, some materials had sharp atoms, while others had smooth ones, with some atoms being very circular and others resembling the shape of the diamond. This is how atoms are different based on their shape and geometry and their arrangement in respect to each other. That gives value to some materials such as gold and make the kings to build their crown out of gold instead of copper. Unfortunately, there are no direct works of Democritus remaining today. However, other philosophers have referenced him in their writings. Democritus' ideas were referenced and discussed by several notable philosophers and thinkers throughout the history, such as Aristotle, Epicurus, and Galileo. Those references and discussion by influential thinkers helped to ensure that Democritus' atomic theory preserve and continue to play a role in the development of scientific thought.